Modern day phenomenon Shake Shack began its high growth journey as a humble hot dog stand in 2001. But since then, the organization has grown more than 30% year over year, opened locations around the world, and successfully launched an initial public offering. And we're going to talk about all of that and more. Joining us today, we have Tara Comonte. She's a president and CFO of Shake Shack. Also, Dave Harris, the CIO of Shake Shack. They're both here. Let's get shaking. Tara, I want to just jump right in with you. We all know that 2020 brought unprecedented challenges to businesses, with the restaurant industry probably being one of the most hardest hit segments. Tell us what this past year has been like.
Hi, Shivani. Thank you for having us today. Yes, 2020 was certainly a very challenging year, and so is the beginning of 2021, not least for a restaurant business. Our business centers around bringing people together. Part of our DNA, in particular at Shake Shack, is around building a community gathering place. So obviously the pandemic had a fairly major impact on that fairly quickly. However, our business came together pretty quickly. Our leaders came together very quickly, very early on, as the reality of this set in sort of mid-March. Fortunately for us, we've spent the last couple of years laying some very strong foundation for long-term growth in a number of different initiatives through which the pandemic forced us to really accelerate, mostly in the digital space. So in some ways, that was a benefit, if there is a silver lining to something as terrible as this last 12 months. But it really, our business was, before the pandemic, 20% in Shack, in restaurant, 80% in Shack, in restaurant, 20% digital. And really in a matter of weeks, that completely pivoted. Our business turned to an 80% digital really in the course of a month. Now that wouldn't have been possible for us had we not already been on that journey. So we're very fortunate that we had that foundation that we could move pretty quickly. The leaders came together, as I said. I think we went through some very fast decision making and changed our processes quickly. We've got a highly collaborative culture, so that helps. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what something like this proved to us was that great people run great businesses. And I think that the strength of our culture at somewhere like Shake Shack really shone through something as difficult as this last 12 months.
And Dave, what role did technology play for you in 2020?
Hi, Shivani. Yes, 2020 was a very busy year. And beyond the increase in remote working and all the challenges that brought that every company faced, we really focused on providing our guests the flexible and convenient ordering and pickup options that they really needed. So that meant for us working on it. Tara explained about how our digital business grew very quickly. So for us, that meant being able to support those ordering and pickup options. We, within the space of a few months, launched Shack Track, which was this whole raft of different pickup options, including the ability to have curbside pickup in your car, to be able to walk up to a window and pick up your order, or even drive up to a window. So all these easy pickup options aimed at ensuring guests had a contactless pickup experience that meant they didn't have to get out of their car in many cases.
The consumer experience was so key to cater to. And how are the two of you collaborating to drive the business forward? Tara, I'll start with you. Talk to me about the collaboration piece in your management team.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the collaboration, our culture is one that is highly collaborative. We truly do walk our talk when we say that people are our greatest asset. And I think that was never more so true as we've seen in the last 12 months. So collaboration is really in our DNA in terms of how we work. In terms of Dave and I specifically, we both come from bigger companies. And so I think we've seen the challenges when silos are built across some of these bigger entities, and how hard it is to break those down. So we have the benefit of sort of seeing that ahead of time and trying to be as proactive as possible to make sure that doesn't happen, and we can have very fluid conversations again across our leadership team, and equally our teams across teams. technology underpins everything today, doesn't it? So whether it's expanding access and convenience and safety to the points that Dave made, and with the pivot of our digital business, or how we support our teams in the shacks or in our corporate office or in a remote work environment. So we talk less about technology per se. We collaborate less around finance needs or technology needs. Dave and I spend the vast majority of our time identifying business needs, prioritizing those business needs, figuring out how we solve for something, the fewest things that have the greatest impact, whether that be reacting in the moment to something like COVID-19, and or quickly getting back to those longer term initiatives that really are going to underpin many years of growth ahead for a fast growth company like Shake Shack.
Yeah, the next new normal. Dave, anything to add in there?
Yeah, I think my role is about figuring out how we use technology to solve business problems and to make sure we execute the right technology for that. We use platforms like Workday so that our 7,000 plus team members can focus on delivering excellent hospitality to our guests rather than on systems.
So given this, Tara, where do you spend your time and focus these days?
Well, I'm a big proponent of less is more, and identifying and prioritizing those areas, those fewest things that have the greatest impact for the business in the short, medium, and long term. When I first joined Shake Shack 4 years ago, some of that focus was very much on the back of house, making sure that we were building a strong foundation for this business for the many, many years of growth that we saw ahead. Workday was a key part of that, implementing this ERP across not just our back office in the home office and the corporate office, but also shoring up the back office of our restaurants so that our restaurant teams and our managers were focused on delivering great guest experience and team development as opposed to sort of administrative tasks in those restaurants. I would say over the last couple of years, and we're fortunate that we shifted, we've built very strong foundations in our digital innovation and digital products. That lent itself to being able to really pivot as quickly as we did with something like COVID. So with the business flipping from 2080 to 80/20 digital in Shack, that digital enablement part of our strategic priorities was really critical to our ability to keeping about 90% of our restaurants open at any point in time through that pandemic. I take my hats off to our teams in the field for that, but at the end of the day, without that enablement provided by technology that underpinned all that, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So now we are looking very much forward. Unfortunately, the operating environment that we're in with this pandemic has become to some degree a new norm. So we've figured out our operating models. We've figured out some of these new formats that Dave has alluded to and we've talked a little bit about. And now we're eyes forward. We are back on a full development schedule. We've got a very robust domestic and international development schedule. We actually opened 20 restaurants in 2020, if you can believe it. But we're in our early stages in places like mainland China, Hong Kong, big focus on Asia. And so whether it be here in the US or whether it be further afield around the world, Shake Shack has many, many years of growth ahead of us. And that's where we are squarely focused right now.
And so, Dave, as CIO, how are you supporting the need to scale and automate with technology?
Well, investing with an eye for scalability is absolutely key. The technologies you need for a group that has 50 restaurants are very, very different to the ones you need in a group of 180 plus restaurants where we are today, and the many more that we're planning and are coming. Being able to automate manual processes and make it really efficient growth is super important as well. So for the last 2 years, we've been really investing in the foundation, implementing the technologies that are going to allow us to scale for many years into the future. And that's really where Workday comes in. For a workforce like ours, having great mobile tools is also a very important part of scalability. We want our teams in their restaurants supporting our guests and not buried away in an office somewhere behind a PC. So I think this is where for us, we invested in implementing Workday, perhaps a little ahead of where a company of our size typically would. But again, it was all about the eye for growth in the future and the ambitious plans we've got. And it's delivered value to the company from day one, really. So very happy we put that foundation in place.
Tara and Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. You both shared insightful, actionable takeaways. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for hosting us.
Bye.